They treated her like nothing, like she was invisible, like her voice didn't matter, like her presence was an inconvenience they wished would disappear. The small-town diner buzzed with laughter, clinking plates, and the smell of fresh coffee. But at the corner table by the window, a young woman sat alone, shrinking into herself as whispers floated around her like poison in the air. Her name was Emily Carter, and in a town where everyone claimed to know everyone, she was the one person no one truly saw. She worked 2 jobs, cared for her younger brother after their parents passed away, and carried the kind of quiet strength that often goes unnoticed. But strength without recognition can feel like loneliness, and that afternoon, loneliness felt heavier than ever. It started with a spilled drink. A group of well-dressed locals, children of wealthy ranchers and business owners, occupied the center booth. They laughed too loudly, mocked too freely, and carried themselves with the entitlement of people who had never been told no. When Emily walked past their table with a tray of iced tea, one of them deliberately stuck out his boot. She stumbled, the tray tipped, and amber liquid splashed across the table. Gasps filled the room, but instead of apologies, laughter erupted. "Watch where you're going," one of the women sneered, dabbing at her designer blouse. Emily bent down immediately, whispering apologies as she cleaned the mess, her cheeks burning crimson. The diner owner shot her a warning look as if the accident was her fault. No one defended her. No one offered a hand. They treated her like nothing. But at the far end of the counter, someone had been watching. He hadn't said a word when he walked in. He wore a weathered cowboy hat, a denim shirt faded by years under the sun, and boots that carried the dust of open fields. His presence was calm but commanding, like the steady horizon at sunset. Most people knew him only in passing. He kept to himself, ran a modest ranch on the outskirts of town, and rarely involved himself in gossip or drama. His name was Cole Bennett, and while he wasn't the richest man in town, he was one of the most respected by those who valued integrity over influence. Cole had seen enough. He watched as Emily wiped the table, her hands trembling slightly, while the group continued their mockery. One of them muttered, "People like her should know their place." That was when the cowboy stood up. The scrape of his chair against the floor cut through the noise like a blade. Conversations paused. Even the kitchen staff peeked out to see what was happening. Cole walked slowly toward the center booth, his boots echoing against the tiled floor. He didn't raise his voice, but when he spoke, it carried across every corner of the diner. "This ends now." The laughter died instantly. The group looked up, surprised that anyone would dare confront them. Cole's gaze was steady, unwavering. "You think you're better than her?" he asked quietly. "You think money makes you decent?" Silence followed. The young man who had tripped Emily tried to scoff, but his confidence faltered under Cole's stare. "It was just a joke," he muttered. Cole shook his head. "A joke doesn't humiliate someone who's working harder than you ever have." He turned slightly, gesturing toward Emily. "She's here earning an honest living. What are you doing besides tearing someone down to feel bigger?" The room held its breath. The diner owner shifted uncomfortably, unsure which side to take. Cole continued, "You don't get to treat people like they're invisible. Not here. Not in this town." His voice remained calm, but there was steel in it, an unspoken warning that dignity wasn't negotiable. One by one, the group lowered their eyes. The power dynamic had shifted in a matter of seconds. For the first time, they were the ones being judged. Emily stood frozen, still clutching a rag. No one had ever spoken up for her like that before. She felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest, something like relief mixed with disbelief. Cole reached into his pocket, pulled out a few bills, and placed them on the table. "For the drinks," he said simply. Then he looked at Emily. "You don't owe them an apology." His words were gentle now, meant only for her. The group gathered their things and left without another word. The door chimed as it closed behind them, and the diner slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But something had changed. People looked at Emily differently, not with pity, but with awareness. They had witnessed someone stand up for her, and that act forced them to confront their own silence. Cole returned to his seat at the counter as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Emily approached him cautiously. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. He glanced at her and offered a faint smile. "Yeah," he replied. "I did." He finished his coffee and left a generous tip before heading out the door, disappearing into the golden haze of late afternoon. Word spread quickly through town. By evening, Everyone had heard about the cowboy who challenged the privileged elite in the middle of the diner. Some praised him. Others criticized him for stirring trouble. But most couldn't deny the truth of what he had said. The next morning, when Emily walked into work, she noticed subtle changes. A regular customer greeted her by name. Another thanked her for her hard work. Even the diner owner seemed less quick to blame her for minor mistakes. Days turned into weeks, and something remarkable began to unfold. The same group who had mocked her started keeping their distance. A few even offered awkward apologies. It was an overnight transformation, but it was a shift. And at the heart of it was one simple declaration: this ends now. But the story didn't stop there. Because standing up for someone isn't just about stopping cruelty, it's about sparking courage. Emily began to carry herself differently. She enrolled in evening classes, determined to pursue the nursing degree she had once believed was out of reach. She volunteered at the community center on weekends, helping children with disabilities, kids who, like her, knew what it felt like to be underestimated. She realized that dignity isn't given by others, it's claimed. Months later, the town gathered for its annual fair. Stalls lined the streets, music filled the air, and laughter echoed under string lights. Emily volunteered at a booth raising funds for accessibility improvements in local schools. As she spoke passionately about inclusion and respect, people listened. Really listened. Among the crowd stood Cole, leaning casually against a fence, watching with quiet pride. When their eyes met, he tipped his hat slightly. She smiled, not the timid smile of someone seeking approval, but the confident smile of someone who had found her voice. He hadn't saved her. He had simply reminded her, and everyone else, that respect is not optional. The truth is, every town has moments like that diner afternoon. Moments when someone is treated like nothing. Moments when silence feels easier than confrontation. But change begins the second someone decides it won't continue. It doesn't take wealth or status. It takes courage. It takes the willingness to stand up and say, this ends now. If this story moved you, if you believe in standing up for what's right even when it's uncomfortable, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because here, we share stories that remind us who we are capable of becoming. Stories of courage, compassion, and the quiet heroes among us. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that believes respect should never be optional and kindness is never weakness. And remember, sometimes all it takes to change someone's life is 3 simple words spoken at the right moment. This ends now.